Hey guys, so we're back for one last part of our chapter 10, which is the two-step equations, and it's called Distributive Property. And so that's the last part in our solving for equations in this unit. And it's a really important part for solving in grade 9 because you're going to need to know how to do this really super well. So I've already gone over this in the live session. If you were there, if you weren't there, you'll want to kind of really take a look at this closely. If you were, just make sure you listen to what I have to say about showing your work, and then you can kind of move on and be able to do the assignment. So two-step equations. So this is what we were doing last week, and so simply we have the 2x minus 4 on one side of the equal sign equals 10. So it's been a bit now. Obviously, you've had a little bit of a break, and so we want to remember that what we get rid of first is always the plus or the minus. So this minus 4 here needs to be dealt with first, and so that's why we add 4 in the bottom so that we can cancel it out, put it to the other side. You have 2x equals 14. And then our last step, so we did our first step, which was adding or subtracting. Our last step is multiplying or dividing. And so here we have 2x, which means 2 times x. So we do the opposite by dividing by 2, divide by 2, and x equals 7. Awesome. So that's two-step equations. And so when we get to here, multiplying variables, we really haven't looked too much into this before, but we need to know that when we multiply a number by a letter, it just kind of sticks onto it. And so like we have 3 times a gives us 3a. So whenever you have a number and a letter sticking beside each other, or when you have something in the brackets, you could have 3a like that, or you could have 3 times a in the brackets like that. That just means multiply. So when a number is multiplied to a letter, the letter sticks to that number. Usually we use brackets to indicate multiplication, and so we don't use the multiplying sign anymore, especially in grade 9. It begins to become eliminated, and in grade 10, 11, and 12 it doesn't exist anymore. So we use brackets. 3 bracket x bracket is 3x, 3 times x. 10 times x here is 10x. Negative 4 times negative x. A negative times a negative always turns into a positive. And so this answer is positive 4x. We can treat this x right here as if there was a negative 1 inside of the brackets whenever you don't see a number there. So it would be like saying negative 4 times negative 1, which actually turns into positive 4, and that's why that answer is the way that it is. And last but not least, at the bottom here, x times negative 6, even though this is backwards, it's still asking you to multiply, so this becomes negative 6x. We don't put the letter in front of the number. We always put the number in front of the letter, even if a statement is written like this. So just make sure that you know that. So be sure to look at how many negative signs you have in every question. Again, just reviewing this, a negative times a negative is always a positive. A negative times a positive number is a negative, and a positive times a negative is a positive. What I don't want people to confuse it with is adding, because a lot of times someone has said to me, hey, dudes, is a negative 5 plus a negative 2 going to be a positive? No, that's not true. It's basically, if we had a number line here, we would have negative 5 down here, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, and negative 1. And actually, we would continue to go this way. When we go negative 5 plus negative 2, we're adding. And adding doesn't follow these rules right here. These are multiplying and dividing rules, not adding and subtracting rules. So negative 5 plus negative 2, if we started here at the negative 5 and we went and added more 2 negatives, we would get more minus c, and we would get negative 7. So the answer to this question is negative 7. It does not follow these multiplying and dividing rules. So if we look over here, we see that negative x, that's like saying negative 1x, times negative 6, so a negative times a negative is a positive, that's why we get positive 6, and then you put the x beside it, negative 6x. 5 times x is 5x, negative 2 times x is negative 2x. And so basically, whenever you see brackets, you know it's multiplying, but we need to remember these multiplying and dividing rules. These rules do not apply to adding and subtracting. All right, so distributive property. You're going to see this mathematical term for a long time now, all the way until you're in grade 12. And so basically it just is a fancy way of what I like to call double rainbow wow. And so if you watch the YouTube, there's a YouTube, and I can just kind of pull it up right now. It's this guy who's like looking at double rainbow. He's freaking out. And so, yeah, here it is.
Double rainbow all the way across the sky. Oh my God.
He's very excited. And, if you watch the whole thing, he just is freaking out. But
what does this mean?
That's my favorite part. What does this mean? Anyway, so double rainbow. So what does it mean? This is what it means. Okay, so here we have a multiplying type of question. Distributive property is all about multiplication because it uses brackets. So if we look here at this particular problem right here, you'll notice that there's a number outside of the brackets, and that's a 2. That's your multiplier. So this 2 is always the number that goes into the brackets. Okay, so we need to draw arrows like I've done here from the 2 into both parts of the bracket. Even if there were 3 parts in the bracket, we would draw the lines 3 times. So that would be a triple rainbow across the sky, and that guy's probably freak out way more if it was a triple rainbow. But anyways, this is a double rainbow because there's 2 numbers inside of the bracket. This means that you multiply the 2 inside to the x first, and that's what this first arrow means. And so here is the first part of that. 2 times x is 2x. And then we would do the second arrow, which is 2 times positive 4, and that is positive 8. But how we would actually draw this is we would do it and solve it just like this down here. This is how you would show your work if you were solving this question. So starting out here, 2 times x first is 2x. You'd write it right below the question. Then 2 times positive 4 is positive 8. You notice that I've written it right below this part right here. Okay, so 2x plus 8. Now, I just want to talk about this little piece right here. Now, the 2 times positive 4, that's why we have to put this plus there. So you have to make a statement, kind of like a sentence. You can't just have 2x and 8 equals 14. You have to have this plus 8. So 2x plus 8 equals 14. Okay, the 14 didn't change because it wasn't part of the double rainbow, okay? The only things that were the x and the 4, okay? And so we multiplied 2 times x to get 2x. We multiplied 2 times plus 4 to get plus 8, and then we equaled it to 14. Now you're in a situation where you're just solving a 2-step equation. So what we have here is we need to remove the plus or the minus by adding or subtracting. So we look here and we find the plus 8, and we know that we need to do the opposite and minus 8. So that's what we did here. Same thing we did last week. And then we have 2x equals 6. Our opposite, dealio is to divide by 2 here, divide by 2 here, opposite operation. And 6 divided by 2, wow, equals 4. Actually, last time I checked, that would be 3. So we'll just change that like that, and I'll fix that for you. Okay, so 6 divided by 2, last time I checked, was 3, not 4. So that's how you get the answer. Here's some other examples here. Again, this is how I want you to show your work. So looking at this example, when you're handing in your homework, I want you to show me this exact way of doing it and no other shortcuts, just doing it like this. So we have 4 bracket 8, x plus 8. We need to draw our double rainbows to show that we understand that it's multiplying into both sides. 4 times x is 4x, right below. And then 4 times plus 8 is plus 32. And then it equals 600. So we write our sentence out right here. We do the opposite by adding or subtracting, which is what we did by minusing 32. We isolated the variable by multiplying or dividing. In this case, we need to divide by 4, and we get x equals 142. The next section here is about doing a check. And the textbook is going to ask you at some points to check to see if your answer is valid or if it's true. This is an essential piece. It seems like a waste of time, and I understand that people get frustrated having to do it. However, it's a real essential when it comes into grade 11 and 12, when they start asking you to prove and validate your logarithmic answers, your exponential answers, and stuff like that. So this is something that happens not just today, it's not just a step that kind of happens, it's just called a proof or a check. So Looking at this problem up here, we decided and solved that x equals 142. Well, what does that mean? It means that wherever you see the letter x in this particular equation, you need to insert the number 142, and that's what we're going to do. So place the value for the x where the x is. So you'll notice I wrote the equation nicely out again. And then when I saw this x, I put my answer. It's the same question, you guys. 4 times, in brackets, x plus 8 equals 600. This question is the same thing here. I got my answer, 142. I now put that answer where x is. 4 bracket 142 plus 8. Well, now I need to do double rainbow, but I actually don't need to do that, actually. I just need to go 142 plus 8, because that's, sorry, bed mass happens first. Whoa, bed mass, brackets happen first. So 142 plus 8 is inside of the brackets. It's got to happen first, and that is 150, so right there. Woo! And then I go 4 times 150, and that equals 600. So the answer is, since 4 times 150 is 600, and since the answer, it equals 600, since 600 equals 600, then this check is complete. So basically you just put the x where it's asking you to, do bed mass, and see if this side 600 is equal to this side, 600. If both sides are equal, then the answer is correct. If both sides are not equal, the answer is wrong. This is how people get answers on the PAT when they don't know how to solve for a particular question, because they get different variables and answers like A equals 599, B equals 600, C equals 601, and D equals 602. What people can do, instead of solving it, is they actually could take x equals 599, put 599 here, and see if this answers the same question. And so sometimes you can just work backwards, and I'll show you that later. But let's just look through the last types of examples of the distributive double rainbow. What happens if there's a negative number outside of the brackets? Well, that means that you double rainbow, you multiply that negative to both pieces inside of the brackets. So this one, negative 3 times x, happens to be negative 3x, because a negative times a positive is a negative. Here, negative 3 times positive 10, just know that this positive belongs to that 10. So negative 3 times positive 10 is negative 30. So right down here, we have negative 3x minus 30 equals 330. Then you need to solve your two-step equation by solving this part first, adding the 30, adding the 30, bringing this down. Negative 3 equals 360. In here, we need to divide by the number, which is negative 3, so that we can cancel that negative 3 out. And so we bring it over to whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. And here we have it. So here are the rules again, just for you to take a look at. And remember that these rules are about multiplying and dividing, not adding or subtracting. These only apply to the multiply sign and to the divide sign, not to anything else. So when you're multiplying a negative number into the brackets, be sure to remember that a negative times a positive is a negative times a negative is a positive times a positive is always a positive, and a positive times a negative is a negative. And here are the dividing rules, which are the same. So this one has a negative, but it's inside of the brackets. So we need to take care of that carefully as well. So here, obviously, this first double rainbow, 5 times x is 5x. However, when we go 5 times negative 4, we get negative 20. Remember that this negative sign or plus sign belongs to the number beside it. So 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. And that's how we solve the rest. And then obviously we go through our 2 steps and solve from there. So I'm just going to show you guys, before we get into this section, I'm just going to show you guys just a few little questions that we can go through together, just so that you see the process of actually happening. I'm going to use a negative number just for fun, to be able to just demonstrate this to you and how I would show my work. So the first thing I would do is draw my double rainbows like that. Okay, the second thing I would do is my first rainbow, which is -5 times x. And directly below, I would write -5x because the number sticks to the letter. And since this is positive, we're good to keep this negative. Okay, so -5 times -2 is +10. So that's important to write that right down below, and then equals 100. From here, you're just doing your two-step equations, so you deal with this plus sign first. So you're going to -10, -5x equals 90. Divide by -5, because we have to be able to cancel. Divide by -5. And I don't even know what -90 divided by -5 is. But we'll get the answer here. 90 divided by 5 is 18, and it's a negative. So that's how you do it right there. So making sure that you show all of these steps in order to get full marks and in order to be really recognizing that you can do that. Biggest part here is remembering that that negative there belonged to that negative too. Okay, so that's how I want you to show your work on all of these. Coming back into the notes here, this is the time where you can pause the video. I want you to solve these by yourself. There are quite a few questions actually to practice on. And then you can resume the video just to check your answers, scroll through, see that you got 100%. And if you did, you're good to go. And you can go ahead and proceed and finish the assignment. After we finish this particular assignment, we'll be doing review. And next week, we'll be having somewhat of a assessment, I guess, to just check to see how well your understanding is of this particular concept. So you can pause it now. I'm going to solve these questions, come back, check if you got the answers right, and you can go ahead and complete your homework. All right. Okay, so I'm going to solve these now. First one I'll walk through slowly. 4x times -12 equals 2. And then I'm going to add 12 here, add 12 here. 4x equals 14. I'm going to divide by 4 here to cancel, divide by 4 here. And if we do a decimal, 14 divided by 4 is 3.5. Or we could use the fraction of 14 over 4, and if we divide it by 2, we would get 7 over 2 as lowest terms. So either one of those answers is correct. Okay, this one here, I need to start with this double rainbow here. -14 equals 2x plus 8. I need to subtract 8, 14, -14 minus 8 is -22, 2x. I need to divide by 2, and x equals -11 in this case, all right? In this particular answer, we got a negative coming in here, so we leave the answer the same. -6 times x is -6x. Ooh, 6 times 17, that's tricky. It's a negative, so a negative times a positive is -102. Okay, so plus 102 on this side, plus 102 on this side. Okay, 102, -18, so -18 is 84. -6x, divide by -6, divide by -6, x equals, okay, so 84 divided by -6 is -14. This one here, taking a negative inside, 16 equals -4 times x is -4x plus 20. And going to -20 here, -20 here. Going to get -4 equals -4x. I'm going to have to divide by -4 on this side to get the x by itself, divide by -4 on this side, and I get x equals 1 here because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Last one's here. 4 moving in here, 4x minus 8. Need to add 8 to get rid of it on this side. I have 20 equals 4x. Divide by 4. 5 is the answer there. And then this one, -4y plus 40. Whoop. equals 24. Ooh, I made a mistake here. Ooh. Try that again. Negative 4y minus 40, because a negative times a positive is a negative, equals 24. Then I have plus 40 here, plus 40 here. Negative 4y equals 40 plus 24 is 64. Divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4. Y equals 64. Negative 16. All right. So these are the answers for these particular questions. Hopefully you are able to get them. If you're having any trouble with this lesson, you feel a little bit stressed and you're not sure how to proceed, there will be a one-on-one time opening up at 9:30 this morning all the way till about 11:30. Gil will be online and you can pop on and do your homework with him, or just to check that you understand distributive property. If you're feeling a little uneasy about it, he will be there. You can pop in for 5 minutes, you can pop in for an hour. It doesn't matter. Whatever you need there, feel free to. So homework will be posted, and yeah, thanks for joining.